Welcome to Wife Cheating Story. I hope you have an enjoyable and relaxing time listening. Let's get started.
We're grateful for each view and comment. Tell us, from which country or city are you watching today? We enjoy connecting with our global audience. Now, let's dive into today's story. Chapter 1: Variable Inputs. Phoenix Mills was not born to privilege. Growing up in rural Nevada with a mechanic father and waitress mother, he learned early that intelligence was his only path forward. By 14, he taught himself 5 programming languages. By 20, he developed his first security algorithm that caught the attention of venture capitalists. Now at 34, he sat in the sleek conference room of Quantum Lock, the cybersecurity startup he'd built from nothing. The neural mapping security system they developed was revolutionary. It could predict intrusion attempts before they happened by analyzing behavioral patterns. Major tech companies were circling like sharks. The Gartner Group is offering $50 million, said Phoenix's business partner, Wes Donovan, sliding the offer across the glass table. Phoenix nodded, expressionless. And Firewall Technologies? 70, but with more strings attached. Phoenix's fingers drummed against the table. Tell them both we're still considering options. What neither offer accounted for was the personal cost. 10 years of 18-hour days. A receding social life. A marriage that had become increasingly hollow. Phoenix had met Naomi Fremont at a tech conference in San Francisco. She was beautiful, cultured, and seemed genuinely fascinated by his work. Their courtship was a whirlwind. Expensive dinners, weekend getaways, passionate nights. 6 months later, they were married in an intimate ceremony at Lake Tahoe. The first few years were good. Naomi supported him through the struggling startup phase, or so he thought. She managed their social calendar, hosted dinner parties for potential investors, created the illusion of success before it materialized. As he drove home that evening, Phoenix's mind was calculating variables, potential exit strategies, ways to maximize Quantum Lock's value before selling. He pulled into the driveway of their modernist home in the hills overlooking the city, noticing 3 unfamiliar cars parked outside. Naomi had mentioned something about hosting her college friends. Phoenix preferred to avoid these gatherings. Force small talk with people who barely masked their disinterest in anything beyond superficial conversation. He entered silently through the side door that led directly to his home office, intending to work until her friends departed. As he settled at his desk, voices drifted through the air vent connecting to the living room. "So how much longer do you have to play the doting wife?" asked a female voice Phoenix didn't recognize. Naomi's laugh, a sound once precious to him, cut through the air. "Until the ink dries on the acquisition. My attorney says California's community property laws are on my side." "And Phoenix has no idea?" another voice asked. "Please. He's brilliant with code, but clueless with people. He actually thinks I enjoy hearing about neural security networks over dinner." Phoenix sat motionless, the words hitting him like physical blows. "What about Theo?" someone asked. "Theo understands the situation," Naomi replied. "We've been patient. Once I get my half of the company's sale, we'll have more than enough to start over somewhere new. Malibu, maybe. Or Lake Como. But what if Phoenix doesn't sell? He will. Wes has been pushing for it, and Phoenix trusts him completely. Besides, I've made sure to mention how we could finally start living once he cashes out." The conversation shifted to vacation plans, but Phoenix had heard enough. He sat in the darkened office, perfectly still, as something inside him crystallized into cold, hard resolve. Naomi wasn't the only variable in his calculations anymore. Now, she was the problem he needed to solve. Chapter 2: System Analysis. The next morning, Phoenix maintained his routine with mechanical precision. He kissed Naomi goodbye, told her he loved her, and drove to the office as though his world hadn't imploded. At Quantum Lock, he nodded to the receptionist and walked directly to the server room. The one place he knew was free from surveillance cameras. There, he called Brooks Alderman, an attorney who had represented him in the early days of the company. "I need to meet. Today. And no one can know." 3 hours later, Phoenix sat in a private room at an out-of-the-way diner 50 miles outside the city. A post-nuptial agreement? Brooks raised an eyebrow. After 5 years of marriage? She'll be suspicious. Not if it's framed correctly, Phoenix replied. We're about to sell the company. I'll tell her it's about protecting both of us from potential liability issues post-sale. And the real purpose? I want clauses that specifically address infidelity, conspiracy to defraud, and premeditated divorce for financial gain. Brooks leaned back. You're going to need evidence. I'll get it, Phoenix said with certainty. I need this ironclad, Brooks. When I'm done, I want her to have nothing. Over the next week, Phoenix operated on 2 distinct tracks. Publicly, he was the same focused tech CEO, weighing acquisition offers and running his company. Privately, he became an intelligence gatherer. He hired a private investigator named Merritt who specialized in digital forensics. Within days, she provided Phoenix with a comprehensive file. Naomi had reconnected with Theo Lancaster 3 years ago, a former boyfriend who now worked for Pinnacle Investments, one of the venture capital firms interested in acquiring Quantum Lock. The text messages were damning. They detailed not just an affair, but a calculated plan to maximize Naomi's divorce settlement once the company sold. Theo had been feeding her information about potential acquisition values, coaching her on when to file for divorce. Your wife's boyfriend has a conflict of interest that would tank the acquisition if it came to light, Merritt explained. He's been sharing confidential Pinnacle information with her. Phoenix nodded, absorbing this information with eerie calm. What about Wes? Merritt hesitated. Your business partner has been communicating with Theo as well, though more sporadically. It seems he's been promised a position at Pinnacle post-acquisition. 2 betrayals. His wife and his best friend since college. That night, Phoenix installed microscopic recording devices throughout their home, technology developed by Quantum Lock, but never brought to market due to privacy concerns. For the next 3 weeks, Phoenix gathered evidence, analyzed patterns, and formulated his response. He studied Naomi like she was a security threat, mapping her routines, communications, and vulnerabilities. He discovered that Theo visited their home whenever Phoenix traveled for business. He learned that Naomi had opened a separate bank account. He found that she'd consulted 3 different divorce attorneys over the past year, searching for the one who promised the largest settlement. While Naomi plotted, Phoenix revised. With Brooks's guidance, he created a new post-nuptial agreement that appeared standard but contained carefully worded clauses that would activate under specific conditions. This won't be easy to get her to sign, Brooks warned. Leave that to me, Phoenix replied. Chapter 3. Code Execution. Phoenix chose a Friday evening after a particularly promising meeting with Firewall Technologies. He brought home champagne and takeout from Naomi's favorite restaurant. I think we should celebrate, he announced, entering the kitchen where Naomi was texting with Theo, he now knew. Naomi quickly put down her phone, her smile shifting into place with practiced ease. Did something happen with the acquisition? Firewall increased their offer to $90 million. We're getting close, Naomi. Everything we've worked for is about to pay off. The gleam in her eyes was unmistakable. That's incredible, Phoenix. As they ate, Phoenix carefully laid the groundwork. The attorneys want us to update some paperwork before the sale goes through. Standard liability protection. What kind of paperwork? Naomi asked, pouring her 3rd glass of champagne. Just an updated post-nup. The company's value has changed dramatically since we got married. It protects both of us. Naomi's fork paused halfway to her mouth. Why would I need protection? If something went wrong with the product after the sale, plaintiff's attorneys could come after our personal assets. This ensures they can only touch the business proceeds, not what we build afterward. Phoenix watched her calculate behind her eyes. If she refused, she'd appear suspicious. If she agreed, she thought she was still protected by California law. I suppose that makes sense, she said finally. When do they need it? I have the paperwork here. We could sign tonight, and I'll file it Monday. Phoenix presented the documents, walking her through each section with practiced casualness. The key provisions were buried in legal terminology that seemed to address post-sale liability, but actually created ironclad penalties for infidelity and conspiracy. Naomi signed without reading carefully, her mind already spending the millions she thought would soon be hers. Monday morning, Phoenix filed the revised post-nuptial agreement. That afternoon, he called a board meeting. "I've been considering our acquisition options," he told the assembled board members and Wes. "I believe we're at the point where a decision needs to be made." Wes leaned forward eagerly. "I agree. Pinnacle's offer. I'm recommending we go with Firewall Technologies," Phoenix interrupted. "They're offering $95 million with fewer restrictions." "But Pinnacle," Wes began, "has a conflict of interest that I've recently discovered," Phoenix finished. He slid folders across the table to each board member. "These contain evidence that Theodore Lancaster of Pinnacle has been inappropriately sharing confidential information and has a personal relationship that compromises his professional judgment." The board members flipped through the documents with increasing concern. "In light of this," Phoenix continued, "I move that we accept Firewall's offer, contingent on accelerated payment terms. I believe we can close within 30 days. The vote was unanimous, with a stunned Wes abstaining. The next 4 weeks were a blur of due diligence meetings, contract negotiations, and strategic planning. Phoenix worked methodically, laying groundwork for what would come after the sale. He liquidated certain personal investments and moved the funds to offshore accounts. He purchased a new property under a shell company. He retained a new legal team specialized in high-conflict divorce. The day Firewall transferred $95 million to Quantum Lock's accounts, Phoenix received a share as CEO and founder, $42 million after taxes. By evening, the funds were secured in accounts that would be difficult to trace or access without his explicit authorization. As predicted, Naomi filed for divorce the following morning. "Mr. Mills," his assistant said, entering his office with an envelope. "These just arrived for you." Phoenix opened the envelope, finding divorce papers. He allowed himself the smallest smile. The algorithm was running exactly as designed. Chapter 4: Unexpected Output. Naomi's divorce filing made the front page of the business section. The timing was too perfect to ignore. CEO sells company for millions. Wife filed for divorce the next day. It painted a picture even the most disinterested observer could understand. Phoenix issued no comment, but his PR team released a brief statement. "Mr. Mills is focusing on the successful transition of Quantum Lock to its new owners and asked for privacy during this personal matter." Privately, Phoenix moved with the precision of a chess grandmaster. He contacted Brooks immediately. "She's using Draymond Klein," Brooks said, referring to Naomi's attorney. "He's aggressive, media-hungry, and has a reputation for scorched-earth tactics." "Perfect," Phoenix replied. "Perfect? Phoenix, he's going to try to destroy you. Let him try. The more aggressive they are, the more justified my defense will appear." The first salvo came 3 days later. Naomi's legal team filed for temporary spousal support of $200,000 monthly, claiming she maintained the household and social connections instrumental to Quantum Lock's success and deserved equal share of the marital assets. Phoenix's team responded by simply asking for more time to evaluate the request. The delay strategy served two purposes. It allowed his evidence gathering to continue, and it frustrated Naomi, who had already begun spending as though the money was guaranteed. 2 weeks after the divorce filing, Phoenix arranged to collect some personal items from their home. Naomi had moved into a luxury condo downtown, already leased in her name months before the divorce filing, Phoenix discovered. As he packed books from his office, he heard the front door open. Instead of Naomi, Theo Lancaster walked in, using a key. "What the hell are you doing here?" Theo demanded, stopping short when he saw Phoenix. Phoenix turned slowly. "Interesting question from someone who doesn't live here. Naomi gave me a key. She asked me to check on the place." "How thoughtful of her," Phoenix replied, continuing to pack his books. "And how long have you been checking on my wife, Theo?" 3 years. 4. The color drained from Theo's face. "I don't know what you're talking about." "No? Should I play the recordings from this house? Or perhaps the ones from the Quantum Lock server room, where you and Wes discussed your plans for after the acquisition?" Theo stepped forward. "You're bluffing. That's illegal surveillance." "Is it? I developed that technology. I own the patents. I was testing security equipment in my home and office. If conversations were captured, Phoenix shrugged. Unfortunate, but inadmissible, as you say. What do you want? Theo asked finally. Nothing from you. You're just a secondary character in this story. But you might want to warn Naomi that her strategy isn't going to work out as planned. After Theo left, Phoenix placed one final recording device in the living room, the most powerful one yet. Then he sent a text to Naomi, left some financial documents on the dining room table. You might want to review them before our hearing next week. The documents were bank statements that appear to show accounts Phoenix had forgotten to secure. In reality, these accounts contained modest sums meant to distract from his actual assets. That night, the new recording device captured Naomi and Theo in the living room. He knows about us, Theo said, pacing. So what? California's a no-fault state. It doesn't matter if I slept with the entire Lakers team. I still get half. He mentioned recordings, Naomi, of us, of me and Wes. Bullshit. He's trying to scare us. What if he's not? What if he has evidence of us planning this? Of me sharing Pinnacle's information? Then your career is over, Naomi said coldly. But that doesn't change the fact that I'm entitled to half of everything acquired during our marriage, including $42 million from Quantum Lock. Their conversation continued, detailing every aspect of their plan, their relationship timeline, and their expectations for the divorce settlement. Phoenix had his smoking gun. At the temporary support hearing the following week, Klein painted Phoenix as a calculating tech mogul hiding assets from his devoted wife. Mrs. Mills supported her husband through years of startup struggles, Klein argued. She's entitled to maintain her lifestyle while we determine equitable distribution of marital assets. Assets that conveniently disappeared offshore within hours of the company's sale. Phoenix's attorneys requested a continuance, claiming they needed time to prepare a complete financial disclosure. The judge granted 2 more weeks. During those 2 weeks, Phoenix's team filed their bombshell motion. They contested the validity of the divorce filing itself based on fraud, submitted the postnuptial agreement signed 2 months earlier, and requested an emergency hearing. The day before the emergency hearing, Phoenix sent Naomi a text, "Settlement meeting tomorrow. You might want to bring Theo." Chapter 5, Virus Detected. The conference room in Brooks Alderman's law offices was deliberately intimidating. Dark wood, leather chairs, and a table long enough to create significant distance between the opposing sides. Naomi arrived with Klein and, surprisingly, Theo. Phoenix sat with Brooks and 2 other attorneys, his expression unreadable. "Before we begin," Klein started, "I want to object to Mr. Lancaster's presence being requested. He has no standing in these proceedings." "On the contrary," Brooks replied, "Mr. Lancaster's presence is central to our motion. You'll understand shortly." Klein's eyes narrowed. "This better not be a delay tactic." "No delays," Phoenix said quietly. "In fact, I'm hoping we can resolve everything today." Brooks opened a leather portfolio. 2 days after Quantum Lock sale, Mrs. Mills filed for divorce, claiming irreconcilable differences and seeking half of all marital assets, including Mr. Mills' proceeds from the company's sale, which she's entitled to under California law. Klein interjected. "Ordinarily, yes," Brooks agreed. However, 2 months ago, both parties signed this postnuptial agreement. He slid copies across the table. Klein skimmed the document. "This appears to address liability protection, not divorce terms." Page 6, Section 4, Brooks directed. "The agreement specifically addresses divorce under certain conditions." Klein flipped to the indicated section, his expression darkening as he read. Section 4.3, Brooks read aloud. "In the event either party engages in infidelity, conspiracy to defraud the other party, or files for divorce as part of a premeditated plan to acquire assets, said party forfeits all rights to marital property and business interests acquired during the marriage." Klein's laugh was dismissive. "You can't seriously expect to enforce this. It's buried in technical language about liability protection. Mrs. Mills wasn't properly informed about these provisions." "Mrs. Mills had the opportunity to read what she signed," Brooks replied. "More importantly, We have evidence that these exact conditions have been met. Brooks nodded to an assistant who set up a laptop and speakers. This is a recording from the Mills residence, taken 3 nights ago. The playback began. Naomi and Theo's voices filled the room, discussing their 3-year affair, their coordination with Wes, and their explicit plan to wait until after the company's sale to file for divorce. "This is inadmissible," Klein shouted. "Illegal surveillance." Actually, Brooks countered, Mr. Mills was testing quantum lock security products in his home, with disclosure posted at all entrances as required by law. The capturing of these conversations was incidental. Klein turned to Naomi, whose face had gone pale. "Did you see any disclosure notices?" "They were small signs. I thought they were from the security system." Brooks continued inexorably. "We also have 3 years of text messages between Mrs. Mills and Mr. Lancaster detailing their affair and financial conspiracy, plus communications between Mr. Lancaster and Wesley Donovan regarding Pinnacle's acquisition strategy." "This is character assassination," Klein argued. "California is a no-fault state. This isn't about fault for the divorce." Phoenix finally spoke. "This is about fraud, conspiracy, and breach of contract, all of which have financial penalties clearly laid out in the postnuptial agreement Mrs. Mills signed." Klein huddled with Naomi and Theo, their whispered conversation growing increasingly heated. When they turned back, Klein's professional demeanor had cracked. "What exactly are you proposing?" Phoenix slid a single sheet of paper across the table. "Mrs. Mills drops all claims to my assets, returns any gifts valued over $5,000 received during our marriage, vacates our home within 30 days, and signs a non-disclosure agreement. In exchange, she receives a one-time payment of $500,000, and I don't pursue criminal conspiracy charges against her or Mr. Lancaster." "$500,000? That's insulting," Naomi exclaimed. "It's generous, considering the circumstances," Phoenix replied evenly. "The alternative is I file criminal complaints against both of you for conspiracy to commit fraud. Mr. Lancaster loses his position at Pinnacle when they learn he was sharing confidential information. And you, Naomi, get nothing but legal bills." "You would never," Naomi began. "I've already drafted the complaints," Phoenix cut in. "They'll be filed this afternoon if we don't reach agreement today." Klein pulled Naomi and Theo back into a huddle. Their conversation lasted nearly an hour, occasionally escalating to visible arguments before Klein finally regained control. When they returned to the table, Klein's face was a mask of professional resignation. "We'll need modifications to the non-disclosure terms in 60 days to vacate the property." 45 days, Brooks countered, "and the NDA stands as written." Another hour of negotiation produced a settlement. Naomi would receive $750,000 and 45 days to vacate. In exchange, she relinquished all claims to Phoenix's assets and agreed never to discuss their marriage or divorce publicly. As they prepared to sign, Naomi looked directly at Phoenix for the first time that day. "I never thought you'd be this ruthless." Phoenix met her gaze without emotion. "You never really knew me at all." Chapter 6: System Restore. The financial press had a field day with the divorce settlement rumors. Without confirmation from either party, speculation ran rampant. Some reported Naomi had received half of Phoenix's fortune. Others claimed she'd been cut off entirely. Phoenix ignored the noise and focused on his next targets. Wes Donovan had gone suspiciously quiet since the firewall acquisition closed. According to Phoenix's sources, Wes had withdrawn from consideration for a position at Pinnacle Investments after Theo's abrupt departure from the firm. Phoenix arranged a meeting at a private club downtown. When Wes arrived, his usual confidence was visibly diminished. "I wasn't sure you'd want to see me," Wes said, settling into the leather chair across from Phoenix. "We have unfinished business." Wes nodded, eyes darting around the room. "Look, about Pinnacle." "Save it." Phoenix cut him off. "I have the recordings, the emails, everything. You conspired with Theo to manipulate the acquisition price and secure yourself a landing spot." "It wasn't like that," Wes protested weakly. "Theo approached me. I was just exploring options. Options that would have cost our shareholders millions and me much more personally. Wes leaned forward. What do you want, Phoenix? Money? I'll return my share from the sale. I don't want your money, Phoenix replied. I want you to understand consequences. Phoenix slid a folder across the table. Inside was a press release announcing Wes's resignation from all positions in companies where Phoenix held investments, citing ethical breaches discovered during the Quantum Lock acquisition. You can't do this, Wes whispered. It'll destroy my reputation. No one will hire me. You're right. No one will. Unless what? Unless you help me with one final task. Then you can resign quietly, keep your money, and start over somewhere far from here. Wes swallowed hard. What task? Phoenix outlined his plan for dismantling Naomi's remaining support system, including her father, Stanford Fremont, who had quietly leveraged his daughter's marriage to secure investments for his struggling real estate development company. Your choice, Wes. Help me finish this, or face the consequences of your actions. 3 days later, Wes arranged a meeting between Phoenix and Stanford Fremont at Fremont Development's offices. Stanford greeted Phoenix with the false warmth of a man who believed his daughter had secured half of a tech fortune. Phoenix, good to see you. I was just telling my partners about Quantum Lock's impressive exit. I'm sure you were, Phoenix replied coolly. Just as I'm sure you've been telling potential investors about your family connection to that exit. Stanford's smile faltered. I don't know what Naomi's told you, but Naomi's told me nothing. But your investors have been quite forthcoming. Phoenix produced documents showing that Stanford had secured $12 million in financing by implying his daughter's divorce settlement would provide guaranteed returns. Fraud by misrepresentation, Phoenix said. Securities violations. Wire fraud, potentially. Certainly enough for the SEC to take interest. Stanford collapsed into his chair. What do you want? 2 things. First, you publicly sever all business connections with Theo Lancaster, who I believe recently became an investor in your marina project. Stanford nodded shakily. Second, you stop supporting Naomi financially. No more paying her legal bills. No more subsidized condo. She's my daughter. She's a conspirator who tried to defraud me of millions, Phoenix corrected. And you leveraged her conspiracy for your own gain. By the time Phoenix left Fremont Development, he had Stanford's signed agreement to his terms, plus a promissory note for the $200,000 Stanford had contributed to Naomi's legal fund. That evening, as Phoenix sat in his new downtown penthouse reviewing documentation of his systematic dismantling of Naomi's world, his personal phone rang. The screen showed Naomi's number. He considered letting it go to voicemail, but answered on the final ring. Yes. How could you? Naomi's voice was raw with emotion. My father? Really? Your father made his own choices. He's going to lose everything. Like you planned for me to lose everything? Phoenix countered. It wasn't supposed to be like this, she said, her voice dropping to a whisper. You weren't supposed to find out until after. That didn't make it right, Naomi. A long pause followed. What if I told you I made a mistake? That I regret what I did? Phoenix closed his eyes, momentarily allowing himself to remember when he had loved this woman. I'd say you regret getting caught, not what you did. Phoenix, please. I have nowhere to go. Theo's gone. Daddy's cut me off. Even my friends won't return my calls since the rumors started. Rumors I've kept contained out of respect for what we once had, Phoenix replied. That was my concession. Can we meet? Just talk? There's still something between us. I know you feel it too. For a moment, Phoenix wondered if she was right. If beneath his calculated vengeance, some ember of feeling remained. No, he said finally. There's nothing left to discuss. Goodbye, Naomi. He ended the call and returned to his work, ignoring the hollow feeling in his chest. Chapter 7. Digital Aftershocks. 3 months after the divorce settlement, Phoenix had successfully reinvented himself. He launched a new venture called Axiom Analytics, focused on behavioral prediction algorithms derived from Quantum Lock's technology, but applied to financial markets instead of security. The company attracted immediate attention. Phoenix's reputation as a brilliant but ruthless businessman, enhanced rather than damaged by the divorce rumors, drew both investors and talent. On a rare evening when Phoenix left the office before midnight, he found Audra Voss, a data scientist he'd recently hired, still working. The Korean market analysis can wait until morning, he said, stopping by her desk. Audra looked up, pushing her glasses back into place. Just trying to impress the boss. Consider me impressed. But I prefer sustainable work habits over burnout. As they walked to the elevator together, Audra hesitated. A few of us are grabbing drinks at Keystone. You're welcome to join. Phoenix's instinct was to decline. He'd kept his personal and professional lives strictly separated since the divorce. But something about Audra's straightforward manner appealed to him. One drink, he agreed. At the bar, Phoenix observed his team interacting off the clock, their dynamics, their unguarded conversations. He'd forgotten what it was like to be around people without calculating their motives. Audra slid into the seat beside him. So, the rumors are wrong. Which rumors? Phoenix asked, raising an eyebrow. That you're actually an AI program designed to look human. Phoenix surprised himself by laughing. My code would be more efficient. Seriously, though, Audra continued, you should do this more often. The team respects you, but they're also terrified of you. Maybe that's by design. Audra studied him. Is it because the guy who noticed I was working too late and encouraged me to maintain sustainable work habits doesn't seem like someone who wants his team terrified? Before Phoenix could respond, his phone buzzed with a news alert. Pinnacle Investments under SEC investigation for insider trading. He excused himself to make a call, stepping outside the bar. Is this your doing? Asked the voice that answered. Hello to you too, Brooks, Phoenix replied. The Pinnacle investigation. Did you trigger it? No, but I'm not surprised. Theo Lancaster made enemies besides me. After finishing the call, Phoenix returned to find the team deeply engaged in a technical debate about algorithm optimization. For the first time in months, he allowed himself to simply engage with the work he loved without ulterior motives. When Phoenix arrived home that night, his security system alerted him to a package delivered by courier. Inside was a thumb drive and a note in familiar handwriting. Insurance policy. In case you're ever tempted to finish what you started. Phoenix ran the drive through multiple security scans before viewing its contents. It contained videos of him and Naomi in intimate moments from early in their marriage, plus recordings of business conversations where Phoenix discussed aggressive, though legal, tactics. He recognized Naomi's message, mutually assured destruction if he continued his vendetta. The next morning, Phoenix received another unexpected communication, an email from Stanford Fremont requesting a meeting. They met at Stanford's club, a once prestigious establishment, now showing signs of faded glory, much like Stanford himself. I'm selling the development company, Stanford announced without preamble. The Marina project is dead after Theo pulled his funding. That's not my concern, Phoenix replied. It should be. The land parcel borders the site where you're planning Axiom's new headquarters. Phoenix hadn't publicly announced the headquarters location. The fact that Stanford knew indicated he still had connections worth considering. What are you proposing? A trade. I have information about who else was involved in Naomi and Theo's scheme. In exchange, you help me exit my company with dignity. Phoenix studied the older man. Why would you betray your own daughter? Stanford's face hardened. Naomi betrayed me first. She promised her settlement would save my company. Instead, she got nothing and left me exposed. What information do you have? Names, dates, details about who helped them plan, who was supposed to benefit, including someone at Axiom you trust. Phoenix felt a cold certainty settle in his stomach. Ooh, that information cost $2 million. Enough for me to retire quietly. Phoenix stood. Keep your information, Stanford. Unlike your daughter, I know who I can trust. As Phoenix left, Stanford called after him. You think this is over? Naomi's not done with you. She'll never be done with you. That evening, Phoenix reviewed personnel files for everyone he'd brought from Quantum Lock to Axiom. One name connected to both Wes and Naomi stood out, Dominic Reed, his head of product development. Rather than confronting Dominic immediately, Phoenix set a trap. He called a leadership meeting and announced a radical shift in Axiom's business model, one that would make certain proprietary algorithms even more valuable. This stays in this room, Phoenix emphasized. The market shift won't be announced for 6 weeks. Within 24 hours, Phoenix's monitoring system flagged unusual activity in Dominic's communications. A text to an unknown number. Strategy changing. Need to meet. Phoenix traced the number to Theo Lancaster. When confronted with the evidence, Dominic crumbled immediately. They approached me a year ago. Said I'd get a leadership role after the acquisition. I just passed along information. I never meant to hurt you personally. But you did, Phoenix said quietly. Everyone seems to think they can compartmentalize betrayal. Dominic was escorted from the building within the hour, his access revoked, his career in the industry effectively ended. That night, alone in his penthouse, Phoenix realized the betrayals might never end. For every conspirator he uncovered, another connection emerged. The web extended further than he'd imagined. He opened his laptop and created a new algorithm, one designed to predict betrayal based on communication patterns, financial movements, and relationship mapping. By morning, he had the framework for Axiom's most powerful product yet. Phoenix named it Cassandra, after the mythological figure cursed to speak truths no one would believe. Chapter 8. Recursive Function. 6 months later, Axiom Analytics had become a sensation in the financial technology sector. Their predictive algorithms were uncannily accurate, allowing clients to anticipate market shifts before they occurred. What no one knew was that Phoenix had deployed a modified version of Cassandra to monitor everyone in his professional and personal orbit. The algorithm alerted him to potential betrayals before they materialized, shifts in communication patterns, unusual financial transactions, unexpected connections between parties. Phoenix had used these insights to quietly neutralize 3 potential threats within Axiom and 2 outside the company. Each time, he moved with surgical precision, ensuring the targeted individual never connected their downfall to him. One Tuesday morning, Phoenix's assistant interrupted his workflow. "Mr. Mills, there's someone here to see you. She doesn't have an appointment, but insists it's important. A Ms. Merritt." Phoenix hadn't seen the private investigator since the divorce. He approved the visit. Merritt looked exactly as he remembered, efficiently dressed, perpetually alert, with eyes that missed nothing. "Your security is impressive," she noted, taking the seat he offered. 3 layers of authentication just to reach your office. "What can I do for you, Merritt? I thought you might want to know that Theodore Lancaster was found dead in his apartment last night. Apparent suicide." Phoenix showed no reaction. "I'm sorry to hear that. Are you?" "Because Theo's death is the 3rd connected to your ex-wife in recent months. First, her friend Olivia overdosed after losing her design firm, a firm that failed when several major clients suddenly canceled contracts. Then Wesley Donovan drove his car off a cliff after being blacklisted from every financial institution in the country. Tragic coincidences," Phoenix said evenly. "Maybe. Or maybe someone created an algorithm that could systematically destroy lives by targeting precisely what matters most to each individual." Phoenix leaned back. "That sounds far-fetched. Does it? I know what Axiom really does, Phoenix. You're not just predicting markets. You're predicting people. Their breaking points. Their vulnerabilities. Why are you here, Merritt?" She placed a flash drive on his desk. "Because Naomi hired me 6 weeks ago to investigate you. She's planning something significant, something that could undo everything you've built." Phoenix made no move toward the drive. "Why betray your client?" "Because I don't work for people who leave bodies in their wake. Whatever game you and Naomi are playing has gone too far." After Merritt left, Phoenix had the flash drive thoroughly scanned before reviewing its contents. It contained detailed surveillance of his activities, personal and professional, plus a disturbing discovery. Naomi had recently met with Lisa Mills, Phoenix's estranged mother, whom he hadn't spoken to in 15 years. Phoenix immediately activated Cassandra's highest security protocols, searching for any digital connection between Naomi and his mother. The algorithm found none, which was significant in itself. Whatever they were planning, they were keeping it completely offline. That evening, Phoenix visited his mother's small apartment in the city's Eastern District. She opened the door with a look of unsurprised resignation. "I figured you'd show up eventually," Lisa said, stepping aside to let him enter. The apartment was modest but meticulously kept, Much like the childhood home Phoenix had grown up in before his father's gambling debts forced them to downsize repeatedly. "Why did you meet with my ex-wife?" Phoenix asked without preamble. Lisa sighed, settling into a worn armchair. "She found me. Said she wanted to understand you better." "And you believe that?" "No. I believed she wanted revenge, and thought I might help her get it." Lisa met his gaze directly. "I told her I hadn't been part of your life for years." "What did she offer you?" "Money at first. When that didn't work, she suggested she could help reconnect us. Said you were lonely, isolated." Lisa's expression softened momentarily. "Are you Phoenix?" "I'm exactly where I want to be." "Are you?" "Because the boy I raised wanted to create something meaningful, not destroy lives." Phoenix felt an unexpected flash of anger. "The boy you raised watched his father gamble away their security, then watched his mother choose that same father over her son's well-being. Forgive me if I learned the wrong lessons about trust." Lisa flinched. "I deserve that. But Phoenix, this path you're on, using your brilliant mind to systematically ruin people, it's not sustainable. Sooner or later, it will consume you too." "Did you tell Naomi anything she could use against me?" "No, but I did tell her something true, that you're still punishing everyone around you for what your father and I did." Phoenix stood. "If Naomi contacts you again, let me know immediately." As he turned to leave, Lisa spoke again. "She mentioned someone named Audra. Said that would be your breaking point." Phoenix froze, his hand on the doorknob. "When did she say this?" "Last week. She seemed very certain about it." Phoenix left without another word, his mind racing. He hadn't told anyone about his growing feelings for Audra, feelings he'd barely acknowledged to himself. Yet somehow, Naomi had identified his one new vulnerability. He called Audra immediately, but her phone went straight to voicemail. Phoenix diverted to Axiom's offices, finding the building largely empty except for security and a few late workers. Audra wasn't among them. Using Axiom's security systems, Phoenix traced Audra's access card. She had left the building at 6:47 p.m. but hadn't checked into her apartment building, something Cassandra noted as a significant deviation from her usual pattern. At 11:23 p.m., Phoenix's phone rang with an unknown number. "If you want to see her again, come alone to the Quantum Lock server room. 1 hour. No police, no security." Naomi's voice was eerily calm. "If you've hurt her, this isn't about her, Phoenix. It's about finishing what we started." Phoenix arrived at the old Quantum Lock building 45 minutes later. The facility had been largely emptied after the acquisition, with only minimal security maintained for the remaining servers. Phoenix used his still-active credentials to enter the server room. The space was dimly lit by the blinking LEDs of half-empty server racks. In the center stood Naomi, looking both diminished and dangerous. "Where is she?" Phoenix demanded. "Safe. For now." Naomi gestured to a laptop showing a live feed of Audra in what appeared to be a storage room, bound to a chair but unharmed. "She's in this building, but you won't find her without my help." "What do you want?" "First, confirmation. Did you cause Theo's suicide?" Phoenix's expression remained neutral. "Theo made his own choices." "Like you engineered those choices?" "Like you systematically destroyed everything he cared about until death seemed preferable." "I never touched him," Phoenix said truthfully. "Cassandra simply predicted his vulnerabilities. The market did the rest." "Cassandra." Naomi's laugh was bitter. "Of course you'd name your weapon after a woman no one believed. Is that how you see yourself, Phoenix? The truth teller everyone ignores." "Why am I here, Naomi?" She stepped closer. "To end this. You've taken everything from me. My lifestyle, my reputation, my future. Even Theo. I want the same opportunity. You want to destroy me?" Phoenix raised an eyebrow. "You already tried that." "No. I tried to take what you built. Now I want to erase you." Naomi pointed to the laptop. "I have a choice for you. Option 1. You transfer $30 million to an offshore account I prepared, and you permanently shut down Cassandra. I release Audra, and we never see each other again. And option 2. I send evidence of Cassandra's actual purpose to the SEC, FBI, and every news outlet in the country. Your algorithm didn't just predict behaviors. It manipulated markets and people. That securities fraud, racketeering, and possibly accessory to multiple deaths. Phoenix's mind raced, calculating possibilities. You're bluffing. You don't have evidence of Cassandra's operations. Don't I? Naomi tapped a key, bringing up documents on the screen. Dominic Reed kept very detailed records before you fired him. Enough to prove what Cassandra really does. Phoenix recognized the documents, internal specifications he'd shared with only his most trusted team members. Even if what you're saying is true, Phoenix said carefully, releasing this information implicates you as well. You were married to me when Quantum Lock developed the core technology. I'm already ruined, Phoenix. What's a few years in prison compared to watching you lose everything? Naomi's smile was chilling. Besides, I've structured the evidence to cast me as the whistleblower who discovered your crimes. Between that and my cooperation, I'll likely avoid serious consequences. Phoenix glanced at the screen showing Audra, then back to Naomi. You've thought this through. I learned from the best. Now decide. Phoenix appeared to consider his options, his expression unreadable. Release Audra first. Then I'll transfer the money. That's not how this works, Naomi snapped. Money first. Then I text the location. How do I know you'll follow through? You don't. That's the point, Phoenix. To feel what I felt, completely at someone else's mercy. Phoenix reached slowly into his pocket, producing his phone. 30 million. Where do you want it sent? As Naomi provided the account details, Phoenix appeared to comply, his fingers moving efficiently across the screen. It's done. Naomi checked her own phone, her expression shifting from triumph to confusion. There's no confirmation. What did you do? Phoenix slipped his phone back into his pocket, triggered a different protocol, one I created specifically for you. The server room doors opened, and Audra walked in, unbound, unharmed, and flanked by 2 FBI agents. Naomi Fremont Mills, one agent began, you're under arrest for kidnapping, extortion, conspiracy to commit fraud, and making terrorist threats. Naomi's face contorted with rage. This is a setup. He's the criminal. Ask her. She pointed at Audra. Tell them how he forced you here. Audra stepped forward. Ms. Fremont approached me 2 weeks ago, claiming to be a journalist investigating ethical breaches at Axiom. She gained my trust, then drugged me at dinner tonight. Everything that happened here was recorded as part of an ongoing federal investigation. As the agents led Naomi away, she screamed back at Phoenix. This isn't over. You think you've won, but you've lost everything that matters. You're alone, Phoenix. You'll always be alone. When the room had cleared, Phoenix turned to Audra. Are you really all right? I'm fine, she assured him. Though I wish you'd told me your ex-wife was potentially dangerous before I agreed to this operation. I'm sorry for putting you at risk. Well, my mother told me Naomi had mentioned you. Phoenix's usual composure faltered. I couldn't let her hurt you. Audra studied him. The FBI agent said you've been working with him for months, that you predicted Naomi would eventually escalate to something like this. Cassandra predicted it. Phoenix corrected. I just confirmed the pattern. And is Cassandra what she said? A weapon. Phoenix considered his answer carefully. Cassandra is a prediction algorithm. It can identify patterns of behavior that might lead to certain outcomes. What people do with those predictions is their choice. Audra nodded slowly. Like you chose to use those predictions to systematically dismantle your ex-wife's life and everyone who helped her. Phoenix met her gaze without flinching. Yes, that's terrifying, Audra said, and also oddly principled in a ruthless sort of way. Does it change how you see me? Of course it does, but not necessarily in the way you think. As they left the building together, Phoenix felt an unfamiliar sensation, not the cold satisfaction of executed vengeance, but something warmer and far more dangerous. Hope. Chapter 9. New Variables. 1 year later, Phoenix stood in his office at Axiom Analytics' new headquarters, looking out over the city. The company had grown exponentially, with Cassandra's predictive capabilities refined and refocused exclusively on market analysis, at least officially. Privately, Phoenix maintained a separate version that continued to monitor potential threats, though he had modified its parameters to flag rather than actively neutralize. The events with Naomi had taught him that some threats required human judgment, not algorithmic determination. A knock at his door interrupted his thoughts. "The board is assembled," his assistant announced. In the boardroom, Phoenix took his place at the head of the table. The quarterly meeting proceeded efficiently until they reached the final agenda item, the proposed merger with Horizon Data. "The synergies are clear," the Horizon CEO explained. "Our data collection capabilities, combined with your predictive algorithms, would create an unbeatable market advantage." Phoenix listened impassively as the presentation continued. When it concluded, he thanked the Horizon team and asked them to wait outside while the Axiom board deliberated. Once alone, Phoenix addressed his board directly. 3 months ago, I asked Cassandra to analyze Horizon's proposal. The algorithm identified concerning patterns. He distributed a confidential report detailing how Horizon had systematically approached former Quantum Lock employees, including Wes Donovan before his death and Dominic Reed afterward. Their acquisition strategy had been developed with specific insight into Axiom's technology, insight that could only have come from within. "They're not looking for a merger," Phoenix concluded. "They're attempting a hostile takeover by subterfuge." The board erupted in questions and concerns. Phoenix let them vent before continuing. "I prepared 2 responses. Option 1. We decline the merger, but leak enough proprietary information to lead them down a development path that will ultimately fail. Option 2. We accept, but with specific contingencies that give us control of the combined entity." "Those both sound aggressive," noted Audra, who had joined the board 6 months earlier. "They try to steal what we built," Phoenix replied. "Aggression is warranted." The board vote was split until Audra proposed a third option: transparency. Confront Horizon with the evidence, demand accountability from those involved, but proceed with negotiations if their leadership made appropriate changes. Phoenix watched her as she made her case. Logical, ethical, yet still protecting Axiom's interests. It was a perspective he wouldn't have considered a year ago. "We'll take Ms. Voss's approach under advisement," Phoenix announced, surprising everyone. "Let's reconvene tomorrow for the final decision." That evening, Phoenix invited Audra to dinner at his penthouse, a rare occurrence despite their evolving personal relationship. Their connection remained primarily professional, with carefully maintained boundaries Phoenix was reluctant to cross. As they ate on his terrace, overlooking the city lights, Audra broached the subject directly. "You didn't really bring me here to discuss the Horizon situation, did you?" Phoenix set down his glass. "Not entirely, no." "Then why?" "Naomi's parole hearing is next week," he said. "The FBI believes she'll be released." Audra tensed visibly. "Is that a threat? To you?" "To us." Cassandra calculated a 72% probability that she'll attempt some form of retaliation. "And you're preparing countermeasures," Audra stated rather than asked. "More destruction." Phoenix was silent for a moment. That would be the logical response, based on previous patterns. But I'm considering variables the algorithm can't quantify." Audra leaned forward. Such as the cost of perpetuating this cycle. The resources diverted from building to destroying. He hesitated. "Personal consequences." Phoenix Mills considering personal consequences? Audra's smile was gentle but surprised. "That's new. I find myself calculating different values lately." Audra reached across the table, her hand covering his. "That's growth. Or maybe just humanity asserting itself over your programming." The next morning, Phoenix made 2 unexpected decisions. First, he called the Horizon CEO directly, laid out what Axiom had discovered, and offered a path forward that required accountability but preserved the potential partnership. Second, he asked his attorneys to draft a letter to the parole board regarding Naomi. Instead of opposing her release, the letter stated that Phoenix had no objection to her parole, provided she maintained distance from him and his associates. When Brooks called to confirm, his disbelief was evident. "You're not opposing her release?" "After everything she did, she served her time for the kidnapping and extortion," Phoenix replied. "The rest is between us. And if she comes after you again, then I'll respond appropriately." Later that week, Phoenix received an unexpected visitor at Axiom, his mother, Lisa. She hadn't been to his office before, and her presence in the ultramodern space seemed incongruous. I heard Naomi's being released, Lisa said once they were alone in his office. Are you concerned? I'm prepared, Phoenix answered. But that's not why you're here. Lisa smiled faintly. No, I came because of something Audra said when we had coffee last month. Phoenix raised an eyebrow. You and Audra have coffee? Monthly. She's quite remarkable. Lisa paused. She said you were changing, that you were finding balance between protection and connection, and you wanted to see for yourself. Lisa nodded. I also wanted to give you this. She placed a worn journal on his desk. Your father's. He kept it during his last years, after you cut contact. He never sent it because he respected your boundaries, even as they broke his heart. Phoenix made no move to touch the journal. He had 15 years to make amends. Yes, and you've had 1 year to decide what kind of man you want to be after Naomi. A man who destroys what threatens him, or a man who builds something too strong to be threatened. After Lisa left, Phoenix sat alone, the journal untouched on his desk. Eventually, he opened his laptop and accessed Cassandra's interface. The algorithm had flagged several potential threats, including Naomi's upcoming release and 3 business competitors making concerning moves. In the past, Phoenix would have initiated countermeasures immediately. Now, he closed the laptop without taking action. That evening, he called Audra. The Horizon deal is proceeding with the modifications you suggested. I heard. The board is impressed. And you? I'm cautiously optimistic, she replied. What about Naomi's parole? I'm not opposing it. A pause. That's surprising. I'm trying something new, Phoenix said. Calculated risk without preemptive strikes. Bold strategy for someone with your history. I have excellent risk assessment tools. Audra's laugh was warm. The algorithm, or something else? Both, Phoenix admitted. Cassandra provides the data, but I'm finding other factors equally valuable, such as Phoenix thought of his mother's visit, the unopened journal, the future he might build instead of the past he couldn't change. Perspective, he said finally, and maybe the understanding that some calculations require human input. 3 days later, Phoenix received notification that Naomi had been granted parole. That same afternoon, Horizon Data signed the modified merger agreement, creating one of the most powerful predictive analytics companies in the world. Phoenix marked both events by doing something unprecedented. He left work early, picked up Audra at her apartment, and took her to dinner at the same restaurant where they'd had their first unofficial date. To new calculations, he proposed, raising his glass. Audra clinked her glass against his. And to the variables you can't predict. Phoenix smiled, a genuine expression that still felt foreign on his face. Those are becoming my favorites. As they ate, Phoenix's phone buzzed with a Cassandra alert. Someone had just accessed one of his monitor accounts, the first warning sign of potential trouble. In the past, he would have excused himself immediately, initiated countermeasures, fortified his defenses. Instead, he silenced the phone and returned it to his pocket. Whatever threats tomorrow held would be addressed tomorrow. Tonight was for different calculations altogether. Ones based on trust rather than suspicion, possibility rather than protection, connection rather than isolation. For the first time since he'd overheard Naomi's betrayal, Phoenix Mills was coding a new algorithm, one designed not for revenge, but for life after vengeance. And there you have it. Another story comes to an end. What did you think? I'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments below. If you enjoy this story, consider joining our community by subscribing. It means the world to us. For more stories like this one, check out the recommended videos on screen. And I'll see you there.